Uncharted is the newest crack at a video game movie, but has Sony PlayStation finally stuck the landing? Let's find out. It's no secret that video game to movie adaptations have had a long and winding road with moderate successes and a lot of misses. Now, Sony Interactive Entertainment, which owns PlayStation, is taking their best stab at a video game adaptation. And to do that, they are bringing to life the widely popular series Uncharted, which has been going strong since 2007. Now, just a bit of disclosure before we really start this review, to give you a bit of background of my level of fandom regarding the Uncharted series. I have played some, but not all, of the Uncharted games, and I am not at all entrenched in the lore of the series, which is to say that I don't really have as much reverence for the source material as I'm sure some of you do. So primarily the way that I went into this movie was as a film fan who has a moderate level of knowledge regarding these characters, which is probably a big contributing factor to why I had a lot of fun with this movie. Now, despite that fact, will this film satiate longtime die-hard fans of this series? Well, that remains to be seen. I think the Uncharted games, to me, have always been one of the series that makes the most sense to be adapted into a movie, because the games not only have this cinematic quality to them, but baked into this game, as well as something like the Tomb Raider series, they already have this Indiana Jones, but also adventure serial sort of quality to them, things that predate this series by quite a while. Not to say that this series lives in the shadow of something like Indiana Jones, not at all, but I think even the most diehard fans of the series would admit that that series of films, as well as the adventure serials, are kind of woven into the DNA of this series, and has a deep love and admiration for things that came before it. Which, as an audience member who isn't completely engrossed in all of the lore of this series, I think that is one of the more alluring aspects of the idea of a series based on these films, as opposed to something like World of Warcraft, which has this incredibly rich tapestry of lore that has been ongoing for nearly 30 years. To me, this feels a lot more contained. The series, of course, has its own lore, but the task of containing a portion of it to a 2-hour action-adventure movie seems like a much easier task. And tasked with that job, we have director Ruben Fleischer, who brings the story to life, along with its cast of Tom Holland, Mark Wahlberg, and Sophia Ali, among others. And I think Fleischer really brings a similar energy that he had with Zombieland here. There is this clear attempt made to blend action and comedy together, but also this real sense of a globe-trotting adventure. Like in Zombieland, a lot of the humor in this movie is found in character interactions. Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg have really great chemistry together and are an actually kind of perfect fit. However, and I think where many diehard fans of this game will be caught up, is where this movie takes place in Nathan Drake's life. Tom Holland, as well as Mark Wahlberg, portray much younger versions of these characters, and I think many of the fans who would expect to see this movie would maybe picture it in a bit of a different light. And because this game is not really a direct adaptation of any of the games in particular, it instead sort of just picks and chooses references and characters and just sort of makes its own story. And because of that, this film is sort of a prequel of sorts. And I think realistically, I understand this move from Sony. Now, despite the fact that it is likely not what many of the fans of this series expected to see when they imagined an Uncharted movie, getting a big name like Tom Holland is something that, if anything, is going to let the series earn the sort of revenue it needs to allow more sequels to come. This film is obviously very interested in continuing this story and bringing these characters back, and putting a young and incredibly popular face like Tom Holland at the front and center of it financially is obviously the best decision in order for them to do that. Creatively though, how do they stack up? Am I interested in seeing more of these characters going forward? And I think the short answer is yes, but with some caveats. I think Tom Holland does a really super job at capturing the sarcasm and the confidence of Nathan Drake, And because of the fact that Tom is not only very young, but is also very athletic, he is able to perform a lot of his own stunts in this movie, which is always great to see. Sure, obviously, because of my separation from the source material, I am likely more willing to accept this portrayal of this character, but I also genuinely hope fans do too. I know how important this series is to a lot of people, and I want them to feel like they are truly seeing their hero brought to life. Now, I think an area where I am a bit more confident that fans are going to be a bit more hung up on is in Mark Wahlberg's portrayal of Sully. Now, as far as I know, he doesn't really do anything in this movie that is, heresy to the character of Sully. Despite that fact, he also doesn't really do anything to remind me of the character really at all. And even in the short amount of time that I have spent with this series and playing this series, I can tell you that this version of the character that we see in this film is not one that fans of this game are going to be overly enthusiastic to see. As I said, Mark Wahlberg, he's a good fit with Tom Holland, and they have great on-screen chemistry together, but that's really where it stops. He is just sort of being Mark Wahlberg, just kind of doing his Mark Wahlberg thing, and doesn't really remind me of the character of Sully much at all. And it's not just because of the fact that he doesn't have a mustache in this movie, which is, come on, it's unforgivable. Something else the Uncharted series is known for is its action set pieces, and for this movie to deliver on the action part of the action-adventure genre, which is a key element of the video games, I'm pretty confident that that area is actually something that fans are really going to enjoy with this movie. This film has such a great pace to it, and I think that is largely due to the writing of this movie, actually. Because the film has this really wonderful habit of constantly providing problems for our characters throughout this entire movie. Once one fire is put out, another begins, and so on. It gives this movie this real sense of forward momentum that even in these larger-than-life set pieces like the one which is directly pulled from one of the video games, there are these little small problems that need to be solved along the way. With that being said though, something I would have preferred just a bit more is to see a little bit more creativity in some of the puzzles, which is another defining characteristic of this series. There is one big sequence for me that this was the most apparent, but in this sequence, I would have preferred just to see a bit more variety and challenges given to our characters as they try and solve these puzzles, which involves these two keys. Too often in this overall sequence, we mostly are just seeing our characters putting these keys into keyholes and turning them. The challenges they face are mostly because of the nameless henchmen who are trying to kill them, so they have to deal with that while they're trying to solve this puzzle of sorts. But that's just it. The puzzle that they're solving, to me, I didn't think was as varied as it could have been, and honestly didn't feel that challenging for them. On the flip side of that, something I really did like about this entire sequence is this problem that these characters are facing, where this ancient puzzle, which was designed hundreds of years ago, has been modernized in a way. So this keyhole that they need to find, guess what? It's now hidden in a nightclub or something that's been turned into a restaurant. I thought that that was a very clever way of providing challenges for our heroes, but I wish the puzzle itself had a bit more variety and a bit more varied obstacles along the way. Because I think in doing this, it's not only in service of the characters, but it also increases that sense of danger and adventure that I think you would find in an Uncharted video game. Now, despite the fact that this movie is not a one-to-one translation of this series, I think it still maintains that sense of fun and adventure that you have when you play the Uncharted games. Although, yeah, I understand this movie may be missing some elements that diehard fans of this Uncharted series will be looking for, I think this movie has room where those things may be included in the future. So did you guys see Uncharted? What did you think about? How does it compare to the overall video game series? If you're a big fan of that, I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions down below. And as always, guys, thank you so much for watching today. I hope you liked today's video. And if you did, click that link down below so you can subscribe to my channel and you'll see more movie reviews and movie related things. Again, guys, thank you so much for watching and see you next time.